Good morning. It's another beautiful Saturday, and we are back to deliberate on issues of national importance. My name is Abna Tebi, and this is NewDay Saturday Edition. We are running from now till 10 a.m. where we draw the curtains on the show. We're coming to you live from TV3 studios here in Accra. We're also live on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Connect FM 97.1, and we're connecting with our global audience on the internet at 3news.com. So today's issues that we'll be looking at are as follows. I'll take you through quickly and then we'll give some context to it. We're looking at the ratification of the interim EPA, the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement that was ratified by Parliament. We'll also be looking at issues arising from government's attempt to raise or issue a fifth Eurobond. And then we'll also take a look at clock sack strike and whether or not we're going to see an end in sight following some issuance of assurances from the president. We'll also look at the BACE results that have come out recently. We'll weigh in on that subject as well. And lastly, we'll touch on findings of a survey conducted by the Center for Democratic Development Ghana, CDD Ghana, which, among other things, disclosing that 7 out of 10 Ghanaians are or believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. So just to give some context to these outlined topics, we'll run through quickly. On the interim EPA ratification, now we are pretty much saying that at the heart of every country's development is trade. And for trade, you're looking at numbers. Numbers are really important. So shouldn't we be happy that with the ratification of the interim EPA, Ghana has access or continued access to a wider market in terms of the European Union market, which comprises of over 20 countries with a population of over 742 million. Well, this doesn't seem to be the case because there are some arguments around. For a long time, the debate has been raging on as to whether or not Ghana should sign the EPA. And at the heart of this debate is the issue about the implications of the EPA on the country's overall or long-term socio-economic development aspirations, and indeed, by extension, those of the ECOWAS sub-region. So Ghana signed the interim EPA in December 2007, pending the finalization of negotiations for the signing of the full EPA. Now, with the signing of the IEPA, which is the interim EPA, Ghana gained continued access to the European market when the earlier framework governing the relationship of the parties expired in 2007. However, the current EU regulation, which grants market access to Ghana and other interim EPA-eligible countries, will expire on 1st October 2016. So what is the government to do? Now, with this deadline fast approaching, this meant that a failure to ratify the IEPA, the interim EPA, would put the country at a loss in terms of running the risk of trade preferences that were previously available to us not being granted to us, and it had the potential of derailing the non-traditional export sector of the economy. And we know that the non-traditional sector is a major contributor to the country's GDP. But the argument still remains, in spite of the ratification of the interim EPA, that what is the overall consequences or implications of the EPA on Ghana's socio-economic development in the long term? This is what we'll be looking at, and whether or not there are other alternatives to having greater or a wider access to the European market and any other market for that matter. Then we'll turn our attention to the Eurobond issue. Government attempting to issue a fifth Eurobond on the international financial markets, bringing about some controversy. Now, the background to this, back in 2004, when at the completion of the decision point of the HIPIC initiative, the Kufuor administration considered, among other things, floating sovereign bonds for the first time in a bid to raise funds for government to embark on national development. So consequently, an amount of $750 million was issued as the first Eurobond for Ghana at a coupon rate of 8.5% per annum, with a maturity date of January 2017. That was a 10-year bond. Then the second Eurobond came, which was issued in 2013, and that raised an amount of $1 billion at a coupon rate of about 7.9 per annum, maturing in August 2013, also a 10-year bond. The third Eurobond was issued in 2014, and that raised also another $1 billion at a coupon rate of 8.125% per annum, maturing in January 2016, and that was a 12-year bond. Then came in the fourth Eurobond, which was issued in 2015, just last year, and that also raised an amount of $1 billion at a coupon rate of 10.75%, maturing in 2030. That's a 15-year bond. So put together, Ghana has raised a total of $3.75 billion United States dollars in Eurobonds since 2007. Now, government's attempt to raise the fifth Eurobond to raise another $1 billion on the international financial markets has now become a subject of controversy. Some quarters are saying that investors rejected our bond, which is casting some doubts on the credibility or the resilience of our economy. Government, on the other hand, is saying that no, investors did not reject our Eurobond. Rather, government has put a pause on the pricing of the Eurobond, as government will not refinance its debt at any price. We'll be interrogating exactly what the position is and what our options are moving forward. Then when we look at the CDD survey report, yes, we know that it's been in the news. According to a survey conducted by the CDD Ghana, 7 out of 10 Ghanaians believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. Nonetheless, Ghanaians, according to the same report, seem to be split in their evaluations of the job performance of the president and members of parliament. Nearly half approve the overall job performance of the president and their respective members of parliament, but the rest disapprove. Also, according to the report, Ghanaians place unemployment, electricity, and education on top of policy priorities that they want the 2016 elections to address. Now, what are we to make of this survey results? And indeed, other similar reports that are out there and those that are yet to come, what value should we put on them as we head for the elections? We'll be looking at this issue and more. And then when we come to the clock strike, we're asking, do we see an end in sight, given what the president said earlier on in the week, that considerations of what clock strike is looking for will be made or put in the next year's budget. And we understand that clock strike is to enter into an MOU with the Ministry of Employment and Labour. What are we going to see out of that? We'll also turn our attention to the BEC results that have come out, and we'll wade into the conversation ongoing on the kind of results that are coming out consistently over the years. Are we on the right track or are we not? And then lastly, when we have the time, we'll touch on the NDC's plans to launch its 2016 elections campaign. So these are the issues outlined for discussion. It promises to be exciting as usual and very thought-provoking, so you don't want to miss any part of our discussions. This is NewDay Saturday Edition, and we are starting the conversation. We'll be looking briefly at the BEC results that were released recently. We'll add our voices to the ongoing conversations. We have Dr. Jinapo here now. Perhaps start with you.
Oh, you want to start?
Being an take on the issue, the BEC
results
that are in.
Let me say good morning to your cherished viewers and to my colleagues. Well, I think with regards to the BEC, it's WASSCE, not BEC. It's
the WASSCE, sorry, yes, the WASSCE.
WASSCE is senior high.
Yes,
and,
yes.
I think usually every year when we have examinations, and it's been something that has been occurring for the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We are always talking about leakages, but it looks as if this year we never had any issue of a leakage either at the BC or at the WASSCE level. But the controversy, unfortunately, has surrounded around the results, and the reference point has been mathematics and English. And legitimately so, because by our system, if you don't have mathematics or English, what it means is that you cannot proceed to the next level of the academic trajectory. If you look at the data that is being provided, 2016, 2015, 2014, you realize that there's been some improvement. I mean, the data shows that there's been improvement. But you see, the point is that, like it or hate it, notwithstanding the improvement that we've chalked within the past years and using 2016 as a you still agree with me that the resource is not that
it's not the best.
It's not the best, because we are talking about 50%, 53% getting mathematics, or is it English, hovering around that area. So what it means is, if you have 50-something% getting mathematics, what it means is that at the end of the day, 40-something% automatically cannot move on to the next stage.
Right.
So I think it will be in our best interest if we better off than what we have now. And if we continue by how we've been moving from 2014, 2015, 2016, we continue in that direction, I think it will be good for us. But you see, the problem that we have in this country, and unfortunately, most people who speak to this issue fail to realize that examinations are just a means of evaluation.
Well, that's speaking to a bigger conversation together, which is looking at how we are, yes.
That is what it's supposed to be. I mean, BAC, WASSCE is a terminal period. When you finish your SSC, what it means is that the decision lies on you whether you want to continue or not. So if you are terminating at that point, the question that educators and stakeholders involved in education should ask is that person able to demonstrate what the objectives of the curriculum at that period is supposed to do?
Right.
And regretfully, Abna, you agree with me that it's not the case. Because if you take somebody with an SSS certificate who happens to work at CV3 here, what you expect of the person? Unfortunately, the person will not be able to demonstrate it. So I think our conversation should move beyond just what? Examination. It should move beyond examination. Of course, it's the easiest way to determine how successful a program is what grade the student gets. Whether the student is able to get A1 or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I think our interest should be, is this person able to demonstrate that, look, I hold a BCE, I hold a WASSCE.
I have the capacity to do
the capacity to do it. That is where I think our focus should be. And beyond that, we should also pay attention to, look, those people who are not able to proceed to the next level of the academic, of the educational ladder. What are we doing to them? Because it's a terminal program. If I say, look, I'm done, SS, I don't want to go back to school again, I want to work. Are there job opportunities? What environment have we created for those people? Because by our educational structure, it's a terminal period.
But even with talking about how terminal it is, or terminal nature of it, with BAC, there's no option to even rewrite, is there? But for WASSCE, there is. There is now.
There is now. Okay. But even then, BAC, you see, the point is that I'm looking at the policy that guides our educational program.
Right.
You know, from class 6, you have to continue to JHS. It's compulsory. By our educational system. It's compulsory. So when somebody graduates from class 6, the person is not prepared by virtue of the curriculum to enter into the job market. But when somebody graduates from JHS, the person by virtue of the curriculum is allowed to enter into the job market. So if the person does not want to continue, what mechanisms or programs are you put in place to address that? But I think at the end of the day, talking about the results, I think moving forward as a people, we need to have a constructive dialogue when it comes to most of these issues. Constructive dialogue in the sense that oftentimes, regretfully, it looks as if when the results are out, it takes partisan
dimension.
You know, because like it or hate it, education is the bedrock of a successful society.
That's true.
It's the foundation of our human resource base. So if we get it wrong, especially at a period where we are looking at these kids, they are teens, they are not mature, they are not children, they are in between. If you do not put out the best program for them, it becomes an issue. But the fact remains that this year's exam, with regards to WASSCE, was not a blunder as it's been professed.
Very well. Mr. Juntua, your take on the issue. What's the controversy about?
Good morning, Abna.
Good morning.
Good morning to my fellow panelists and good morning to our viewers. Abna, I believe that the whole curriculum that we have, how many times in a season is it overhauled? How many times is it brought up for us to interrogate whether what we have put out is benefiting the children that are being taught? I haven't heard, and really and truly, I will tell you, I don't even know what the curriculum is.
But you don't work
how
in
many,
that area.
irrespective, the fact that I don't work in that area, the fact that I don't work in that area doesn't mean that wards and people of Ghana shouldn't know. As my brother just said, education is the bedrock of every society in every country. And if education is not actually helping our young ones, our children, our youth to be able to move forward, then where are we going? Where are we going? For me, I believe that we should first interrogate the type of lecturers and the type of notes that they use to teach our children. Because what you put in is what comes out. How come we hear a whole secondary school, the whole group of children or youth who took examination, all of them have failed? Do you blame the young ones? No, I don't think so. But having said that, the other side of it is that, as my brother said, it's not only examinations that you use to test a child. It's not everybody who can sit and do a 3-hour examination and pass. I know
and this is one that is looking at 3 years. It's a period of 3 years, right? From SS1 to 3.
I know people. I have a fair idea of how education is in the UK. And there, those who cannot pass exams, and the major subjects that you need to pass, whatever the case is English and maths. Those are the two main ones you need to pass. And whatever you do, if you fail English and maths over the next 10 years, you will take that exam before you can move forward. Because it's basic. They expect you to know that. However, what about the other disciplines? You know, once upon a time, you go all the way to end of Nigeria and further, those people who, technical people who were building those countries were Ghanaians, i.e. teachers, plumbers, electricians. And when you go to countries like Europe, it's the plumbers and the electricians who make most of the money. It is the masons, those who build houses, who make most of the money, because it's a skill. Are we training those who can't sit down and do an exam? Are we training them to be able to also go into other disciplines? Just last week, we heard that there is a huge challenge where cocoa farmers are concerned, because the old ones are dying out and the young ones aren't interested in it. What kind of thing have we put up to be able to encourage those farmers who have children and those young ones who want to go into agriculture, for them to take up that? You know, it's strange that when we now go through all the things we want to go through in life, we get to the age of 55, 60, we say, oh, we want to go into farming at an older age. What about the young ones? Because most of the money in America today that is made by farmers. Made by farmers. So I think that there has to be a holistic examination of the kind of educational system we have. Today, they don't teach history in our junior schools again. What do they call it? They have a name for it. Is it social studies?
Yeah, social studies and compass.
But in our days, it was a singular subject which you went deep into it. Geography was a singular subject which you went deep into. So as an individual, you can say, as a child, you can sit down and say, when I get to Form 3, I'm going to do history because I'm interested in, that's where my strength is. I'm going to do geography, I'm going to do X, I'm going to do Y. For me, one of the things that I didn't do in school, which I'm regretting now, is the fact that I didn't learn tree. The fact that I didn't, to read and write tree. I'm beginning to realize that if I had done that now, I'll be a much better person because of some of the things that the tree language or the vernacular language brings us.
Right.
And so I think we should have a holistic view of our education, because these things always come up. They always come up. And we didn't try here. So we should get to the crux of it and see how best we can at least make sure that our children from a certain point on, or from this point on, would get better grades and move forward. Some of us took our A-levels abroad and went to university there. Can you do that today? You can't.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Mr. Adongo. I just want you to look at this. You know, the results came out, this controversy about whether there's an improvement over last year's. And I'm asking the question, don't we have the statistics to just look at, so that why is there even a dispute about this, given that there are verifiable figures or data that we could turn to?
Good morning to my co-panelists, and good morning to your cherished viewers, particularly my people from Bolga Central. I think the whole controversy for me is much ado about nothing. And it is interesting because of the originator of the controversy. If this had been a debate around how do we improve educational standards, then it will be properly situated, because then we'll be looking more as proactive steps that are already being taken and that need to be taken in order to improve our educational outcomes. We all do agree that there is still the need to improve further our educational outcome, the quality of education. But to suggest from no mean a person than somebody who wants to become the president of Ghana that he did not even know that what he was saying was completely false, that the standards have fallen compared to last year, when the facts are very clear that last year we had a 24% pass rate. This year we had a 30% pass rate. I don't know how Akufo-Addo wants to convince me that 24% last year was better than 30% this year. And this is no mean a person than somebody who wants to take the reins of government and is not even aware, because now you're putting together your manifesto, you would come to education, and so you'd have been abreast with some of the basic facts that you want to improve upon, that you still don't even know the trajectory of our educational environment, and will make such a gulf and create an unnecessary waste of everybody's time, because we are focusing on a discussion that should not even start in the first place, because the facts are very clear. You can't say that 24% last year was better than 30% this year. So that is a non-starter. Now let's also say that when a political leader who is seeking the mandate of the people seek to play politics with the lives of people, students, you want to find out what is the track record of his own government. And the MPP, the best performance of the MPP was in 2008, and it was 12.9% pass rate. 12.9% pass rate, and still 30% is worse. Again, the worst performance of the NDC was in 2013, and that worst performance was 19%. So even the worst performance of NDC is better than the MPP's best performance. I hope you're getting it. So if our worst performance in 2013 was 19%, and the MPP's best performance was in 2008, which was 12.9, straight away, Akufo-Addo should not be starting this debate, because it will fall flat in the face. But what are the facts? Why is this government working so hard to improve education? And what is the track record of this government and the commitment of this government to improve education? Today, we are aware that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is adding an additional 123 new senior high schools. If he is able to deliver the 200 new schools, that will give you an additional 50% increase in the secondary schools that exist currently. How many secondary schools did his government build in 8 years? We don't have a figure. I mean,
but
Mr.
I'm just trying to let you understand,
because these kids,
clearly from the earlier submissions, and all, we are looking at the content of the education, not necessarily about the content, the numbers.
The schools that are being built are state of the art.
Because there's more to it than just putting up the infrastructure in terms of giving quality education.
We didn't move from 19% to 24% and to 30% for nothing. It is a calculated attempt at improving educational outcomes that has brought us to 30% from 12.9% in 2008. And so that already should be telling you that teaching and learning is improving in our schools. We are providing better enabling environment for students to learn, and we are doing more to absorb most of these students. In the end, these students must end up with spaces in schools. They must get a place to be absorbed. And so to build more structures will make it easier for them to get employed. We also are looking at those that have not passed vocational technical education. And currently, there's a World Bank project that is improving expansion across all technical institutes across the country. If you go to, Adan right now, you will see the expansion that is going there. If you go to the technical school in my own village, in Bogatanga, you see the expansion that is going on. And it is going on across the country in order to provide additional opportunities for those who cannot go to the secondary schools but will want to develop their technical vocational capacities. And so these are the facts that we are looking at. And so I am very, very sad that if I were developing my manifesto today, these are things that I should have on my fingertips. I should know where our education is moving. I should know the statistics as to how we are performing. And based on that, I should then be able to tell Ghanaians how I will improve on that. But he doesn't even know that now.
Very well. I will be moving on to Nana now. Nana, please. We are the BEC, the WASSCE results that are out, and the whole controversy about the whether or not the figures we have is an improvement over last year's and all of that. And I'm wondering why that controversy in the first place, because we have figures, verifiable figures that you could easily turn to and all of that. So please, your take. Ms. Adongo has made some submissions in respect of what your flag bearer had said, and any reaction to that, and perhaps you go on to talk about your take on the educational system in general.
Well, good morning. And the screen showed earlier that I was missing. I apologize. Technicalities, funerals and things.
We understand.
Slow you down, yeah. My first immediate reaction is, yeah, so what if, assuming, because I don't know the technicalities. I don't know 30% versus 24% versus what is true. But I do know that something is fundamentally wrong. What's the term? Admitting without, assuming without admitting, whatever the term is, that Akufo-Addo is wrong. So what? What's the reality on the ground?
I think the question then is why throw out such...
Well, the fact is that as our education, are we doing well?
Indeed, that's a bigger conversation.
Yes, and therefore, is 30% or 24% a good representation of the kind of people we want to put out? And it's 30% of what? Percent of what? My brother was talking about 12%. 12% of what? 19% of what? I recall a few years ago when the NDC took office, they dropped the passing rate. So if 50% was the pass, they dropped it to something like 30%, so that everybody could pass. Then they could say that they've got a whole host of people. So 30% of what? You see, you seek to achieve for Ghanaians? The fact that they were able to enter a building and claim that they were in a class, or people who can think, creative thinkers, those who can really do something. 50 years' time, when I'm not alive, I can tell, wherever I am, hopefully in heaven, that we left a legacy of people who are growing. Or you want to sit on TV and brag that you have a better candidate who's churning out 30% of what? My brother, let's be serious about Ghana. The reality is that you dropped the standards. Mr. John was talking about the kinds of things you could get in school. How can you today be a Ghanaian proud to be pounding your chest that the World Bank is constructing schools for you when you have gold and diamond and all these other things, and you're supposed to have brainy people in office? And we're proud to say that's a show, that we're doing very well as a country, and therefore this is how we're churning out educated people. And those educated people are 30% of what? Please. The reality on the ground is this. Whatever the figures, we're not doing well. We're not passing people properly. They're not getting properly educated. If you read the kind of English alone that people are writing, and we've come up with this culture that, oh, English is not our language. So when you're learning something, learn it properly. When you're doing something, you do it properly. When you've gone to school and you've been taught, you learn it properly. That's what makes you human. You're different from other species on this earth. And so that's the essence of education, to expose you to the world, prepare you so you can live well and by extension to your family and then the society. So when we're looking for a strong educational system, We're looking for one where when people are done, whatever level they're able to attain, the basics for their lives are covered. When you want people to be, the term is numeracy, yeah? They should understand numbers. What is it for? Basic writing skills, what is it for? Once you've gotten people past that, then their comprehension, when they've read or written or whatever it is, what is it for? How do they benefit, and how does the community benefit from them? That's what we're looking for in an educational system. And so today, what you claim to want to construct 200 schools. First of all, you failed on that policy because you didn't tell the truth. You're constructing beyond the actual costs. You're chopping the money, and then we're not seeing the buildings. As we speak, you cannot account for 50 schools. You cannot account for 50. You cannot point to us that you've constructed 50 schools, and you're supposed to do a certain number per year. That's something to brag about. You can't take care of teachers. You can't even take care of teachers, and you're happy to sit and brag about what you're achieving with some numbers that are even questionable. So that's the real issue. For me, the reality is that we're not getting our children to get the kind of education that they should be getting. What is going on with our educational policy? How are we handling young people who want to get schooled? And this one even cuts across. So you're talking not only of from kindergarten through primary or elementary, you're also talking about your JHSs and your SHSs and your technical schools. You're talking about the universities. Even those who would like to go beyond that. What opportunities are we providing, and how are we managing such that is good for us? There's a major shortfall in our teacher situation. Our teachers are constantly struggling with their monies. Nurses who go for training are suffering. They're not getting their money. Now suddenly, because of this very person you're trying to pound your chest against him about his capacity to be a presidential candidate, when he raises issues about nurses training money, then you get jittery. First you start lambasting him, then you get jittery, then you turn around and start offering money to those people because you realize that suddenly it's a good message he's got, and meanwhile you're sitting on the money.
Very well, and let's move on. I'm listening to the different sides, NPP and DC. It's just making me wonder here that isn't this perhaps the main reason, or the reason why we are where we are? Because I'm looking at a statement by the sector minister who pretty much acknowledges that. It says that she's saying that we may not necessarily have achieved our targets. However, efforts must always be implemented to get it better. So there is a target. But we seem to have lost sight of the targets, and we are looking at the very mediocre issues about a slight improvement or whatever, because there is a target, which for me is key. Mr. Jantua, why are we missing the mark?
What I don't understand, and I was listening to my brother Dongo here, trying to indicate that the fact that we've moved from 24% to 30% is an improvement. 30% of what? 30% of the educational setup passes that we have now improved at 30%. So what about the 70% that we haven't been able to achieve? If it was 70%, yes, then I agree we're going somewhere. 30% is mediocre. And for me, do not let us politicize things like education.
Exactly.
What are we politicizing it for? What Nanadu said, what Nanadu didn't say, what Greenstreet said, what Greenstreet didn't say, what John Mahama said, what John Mahama didn't say, is not the issue. The issue is the content. Are the youth getting what they need to get to be able to improve? That's the issue. And where does that come from? It comes from the classroom and how the children are taught. That's where the issue is. And if it so happens that lecturers like my brother here are not getting the amounts of comfortability that they need to concentrate, with their salaries, them to be able to meet the needs of their families and all that, it all comes into it because they'll find other ways of making money and not concentrate. I'm not sure whether in universities still they are giving them the old notes that you and I...
Oh, yes, I think it's the order of the day, but that's what happened. Doc, you wanted to come in, please.
I think, first of all, this whole conversation needs to be posited within a context. Sure. The context being that in 2016, a couple of weeks ago, we had results of WASSCE coming out. And the argument was that the performance was so bad. That was the argument. And indeed, this whole argument that education should not be politicized, I respectfully and humbly disagree. Okay. If you won't politicize education, what else will you politicize? Because education is the bedrock. To
the extent that you miss the mark, you're looking at a target and now you're playing with numbers. I think that's where the argument is.
You need to play with numbers.
Hang on.
You need to play with numbers. Why not?
When you say you should not politicize it, attack the issue first. Before you politicize it. But we don't politicize it before attacking the issue.
Listen, we have two major political parties who want power.
Who've been in office for a committed figure of 24, 16
They are the ones who've been there for 30 years. Have they been able to change it?
That does not mean we should put our hands on the air. These are two candidates who want power. One of them is saying that, look, the performance this year was 24%. And that performance, it's indicative of the fact that our educational system is what? It's running down. The other is saying that, no, it's not running down. It's 30%. And from 24 to 30%, there's an improvement. Of course, if you make the argument that 30% of what? 30% of the total number of people who wrote the exam. That's what it is. I'm not happy about we getting 30%. But if the argument is being made that we are running down, by the facts on the ground, we are not. That's the point that I'm trying to make. We are not, even though we are not doing best, or we are not doing as expected.
Exactly. It's a question of little drops of water make a mighty ocean.
However you see it. But you see, before you come, you see, the point is this. Our educational system, education as it speaks, we tend to oversimplify what education is by looking at it based on just examination. And that is where, when I was making my presentation, the argument that I made was that, look, if we have somebody graduating from JHS, what kind of a person are we producing?
Which goes to content.
If you are talking of somebody who is coming from SHS, what kind of person are we producing? Even a university graduate, who is he? So, in looking at all these things, even though I agree that it's a political issue, we need to look at it from the perspective of how can we produce candidates who will better fit and be productive in society.
Great. You see, the minister, from the article on the internet that I just read, she's making reference to a target. I would have loved to know what target it is, so that when we are talking about, when we are assessing, it's against that target, as opposed to...
Targets will always change. Targets will always change. Because
but currently you're marking against a target that is still applicable.
Targets will always change. If the minister says that I need 70% or 80% target, I would say that is a wrong, what do they call it?
Target?
Target, in the sense that educational targets should not be seen as nominal value. We are talking of the person. It's not about the person getting A. That is where people get it wrong. If I get A, and I come and sit here and I cannot demonstrate that I'm a first-class student, it's useless. You understand what I'm saying? So today, as we speak, when I was in the university, when I graduated, immediately I'm looking for job skills. We have computer skills, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. Today, can you put that on your CV? No, because IT for a university graduate is like speaking English. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So how can we more or less work? My aim is not about the A. It's not about how many people pass. Of course, how many people pass is very important. But what kind of person are we producing?
How many people pass with a certain quality? And that's what, Mr. Dongo, you come, let Mr. Johnson briefly.
Just a quick,
yes.
If you are trying to set a certain target, that target is over a certain duration. And so you start from kindergarten on how you train the young ones to be able to get to a position so that within a certain duration, you hit that target. What is happening in kindergarten today? That is where it starts from.
What is wrong with kindergarten?
To be able to put a mindset in a child starts from there, starts from the home, starts from interaction. For you to be able to say, I want a 70% target. You just don't get up and say, I want 70% target. You have to look on how you're going to achieve that 70% target and then work with it.
I would want to believe that whatever target the ministry has was based on a context analysis or whatever analysis they did. I want to believe it wasn't done out of a vacuum or in a vacuum. But Mr. Dongo, what should we be doing? You're talking about, yes, building infrastructure and all of that, but now clearly we are all speaking to the issue of content.
Yes, I think, you know, my challenge is that somebody starts a debate, okay, and when it falls flat in the face, you run away from the debate.
Mr. Dongo,
but it's important. It's important. People are listening, and there are misconceptions that are being created. NDC is very clear that, and when I started my submission, I made it very clear that we know a lot still needs to be done in order to improve educational outcomes. That is the starting point.
Right.
And so a lot of work is already happening. And I'm saying that the movement from 12.9% in 2008 to 30% didn't just happen. It happened based on a calculated effort to gradually improve educational outcomes. So we need to put that in context. The other issue about teachers not being paid and the rest. What is the yardstick for measuring the commitment of a government in improving the living conditions of the people? It is your salary bill. We had 1.9 billion Ghana cedis as wages and salaries in Ghana here in 2009. Today, how much is it? 11 billion. Isn't that mind-boggling? And so it is only clear that in terms of improving people's income, teachers and workers' income, there has been an astronomical increase. But of course, people want more, and government will wish to do more. But within the constraints of the budget, are we able as a country to sustainably do more, or we cannot? So there is a need to improve people's salaries, but don't take the fact that we have moved astronomically from 1.9 billion to 11 billion, and it is there for everybody to see. And that is the only way you can measure the government's commitment to improving the salaries of workers.
Great.
Now, the other issues about content. Yeah, the other issues about content. Today, we have resourced a lot of the teacher resource centers across the country, which were already constructed by the NDC and have been resourced as we speak. I cannot see a single resource center that was built by the NPP. Today, we are building ICT centers in various communities to help students improve on the teaching and learning of ICT. And we do know that ICT is now the game changer. Okay, as we speak, in the next few days, I will be constructing ICT in one of my remotest communities. Okay, to be able to bring ICT to the doorsteps of the students. So we are improving a lot on the content and in terms of improving the teaching and learning environment in order that the outcomes are better. And so when you say, there's a difference when you say that you think that we should improve. I agree. But when you say that it is worse than last year, that is a categorical statement. And you cannot now be saying that we should not focus on a clear misconception to deceive the Ghanaian people. We shouldn't be telling Ghanaians the truth, that he made a calculated effort to deceive us and to create the impression that the standards has fallen from last year. And I'm saying that is the basis of my debate, that it has improved from 24 to 30%. I am not saying that as a country or as a government, we are comfortable with 30%. And that is why the minister did indicate that he missed his target. What that should tell you is that 30% was not the expectation. There is a lot more to be done in order to improve and improve and improve. And so that focus must not be taken away from this debate. That there are two things. Somebody makes a complete categorical statement that is a false. We must address that. Two, we can have the bigger debate as to how we continue to improve educational outcomes. Right. So these are two separate things. Right. And I do believe that when we come to that debate, the NDC stand tall in terms of our track record. He did mention that when the students finish school, they might have opportunities. Where are those opportunities? Today, training colleges, we have improved enrollment by 63% within 1 year.
Yes, we'll go, but I want us to still remain on.
That is to make sure to teach in our schools.
Great. Now,
I'm sure you'll give me a bite.
Definitely, we will do that. You will come to that, but I would want us to move on, look at, yes, Mr. Dongo, you're talking about improving, yes, but now the question has become very, for me, the imperative question here is improve on what? Or perhaps change from what? Because we're looking at, there's this consensus, whether we like it or not here, that content is an issue. But how do we change the content? Is it about increasing salaries? Is it about increasing teacher numbers? Because yes, that goes to conditions of service. Does it mean that if you improve the conditions of service, you are automatically going to address the issue of content? Which for me, you're looking at curricula, the curricula that we are perhaps applying. And I'd want you to address that, Nana. And then also, Doc, you would come in here with your experience from academia. I think it would be very useful at this point in terms of our curricula.
First of all, there's a reality. The reality is that the NDC, Mr. Dongo and his party and the people in government would love us to go according to their thinking, not necessarily Ghana's needs. And then there's the reality of what Ghana is going through.
And which is what I want us to focus on, what we need, so we rise above this whole...
Yes, but as we go along...
You want to take a bite of that as well.
My doctor brother said...
You can
there's a political angle to education. That's important, because you want to make sure that the bedrock of our growth is stable. So when you put out untruths, like he tried to claim about us, I also need to correct that. First of all, the reality is that technically, with regard to how they've managed our education, they failed. If you want to talk about curricula and all that, when Professor Namoamen's report came, where were the NDC? Were they not in Ghana? Did they read the report? Did they think through it? Did they debate it with the rest of Ghana like Ghana was doing? Because when it was all said and done, a policy was determined and it was implemented. What was their position on that? They didn't stick to it. And then they came into office and within a year or so changed the whole thing, which then takes everybody off track. There was a benefit to that. Therefore, you'd have, talking about content would have been stronger because you allow the children to stay in school and start. The educationists are around, ask them. And there was a basis for that argument. And you're not just churning, it's not like sardines off a factory line. You're churning out brains. That was the objective. What did they do with that? Not only did they stunt that, they rushed to claim that we should drop down the pass mark so that they can pound their chests and say we've put out a lot of people who've passed. Was that good for us, talking about content? The kind of passing we're looking about? You dropped it. That's the point. Did you drop it? Did you drop it? Did you not put it?
It's a lie.
From
where to where?
Mr. Dongo, please allow him.
You dropped
you can come in with that.
The pass mark so that more people could pass. This was, I think, 2010 or so. Check, you have a phone in front of you. And don't use strong words like lie because it disrupts the program. Be more diplomatic than that. Now, the reality is that this is what has happened. Well, you've dropped the standards. Now, what are we teaching these young people in school? Doc was talking about ultimately where we're going to place them in their lives. I raised the same matter. What we're teaching them, have they even sat down to think through it? That was what was happening as part of the change that President Kufuor brought. Those 35 or so model schools that he was able to put out, have they met that standard? Because it was brain development oriented. That's what we're looking at. So when we're looking at the policy, like I said, 24 or 30% of what? You might be caught up in the politics of 24% not being the right number. That's fine. But are people able to go to school and come out with the material that we require of them as a country so that we can build? You're talking about teacher development. He's sitting here saying that his teacher income has gone up or something. Really? Today, 100 cedis at the end of 2008, Kufuor's time, is worth 25 cedis today in Kufuor's money. Because you're giving them 400 cedis, but it is not worth the amount of money. That 400 cedis you're giving them is worth the 100 cedis at Kufuor's time. So you haven't done anything. That's the reality. Don't drop. Exchange rate has gone very bad. The economy is not stable. Inflation is terrible. Everything is not going right.
So even though they've increased it in terms of absolute numbers,
it means nothing.
What was the inflation then?
It means nothing. So what we are talking about is reality. The reality is that you are not paying properly. Otherwise, the teachers will not be striking it the way they keep doing. Two, you claim you're putting a teacher training what? Your ministers went to the teacher schools and they booed them. Or you think we've forgotten? We don't have short memories. Oh. They booed your ministers. Or ministers. They booed them. Yeah, there's Ghana. They booed them. Why? Because you were lying to them. You
were not telling. We shouldn't use lies.
I didn't say
please.
I didn't say.
Let's be different. I mean.
No.
Quid pro quo, please.
No. I accept,
yes.
and I'm trying to justify why I used that because I thought about it. He was referring to me directly. I'm talking about the collective policy that they were telling the people, and for reason for which they booed them. He directly, I wouldn't say he lied. That I'm sure about. Now, so they didn't tell them the truth, if that's what you want me to say. Exactly. They didn't tell them the truth.
That's more with the truth. That's more.
Thank you. That's fine. But they didn't, and so they were booed. That one too is not true. It's true. How can it ever happen? Those are all the realities. Our teacher trainees are not happy with you. They are not happy with you. Is it true or not? It's because you are unable to meet and the money, it's not like the money is not there. It's there, but you are chopping it. That's the reality.
No, please be wrapping up.
So I'm saying that, look, the Akufo-Addo policy of 2008, of 2012, and when the manifesto comes out, you will realize, is that it's very teacher promotion oriented. It has always been, it will always be. If you like, go to the 2012 manifesto, and he actually made a whole statement on it, on how they will be trained, they'll be resourced properly, and it's not resource that benefits the party in power. It's resource that benefits the teacher so that the children benefit. That's what we are talking about. And those are the things that you should do.
Great. Please, the conversations are ongoing. We're looking at the BEC results as released by, the WASSCE results as released by WAEC, and we're getting engaged on the bigger issue of our education system and the way forward. I'll take some messages and then I'll come back to you, Doc, for you to react to some issues. So when they say, good morning, Abna, is your discussion about the content and performance of educational system in Ghana, or Nane's take on the poor results. Mr. Adongo has brought in politics and personal attack, which is very unfortunate. Dr. Janapo and Mr. Jantwe's take was spot on. This is a sad diversionary submission, and this is from IB. Good morning, Abna. Our syllabus is overloaded to be covered within 3 years, and our politicians must stay out of educational system. This is YUK in Cape Coast. The year which recorded the highest percentage of passing in WASSCE results was in 2012, which was as a result of the 4-year term policy put in place by the NPP government in 2008. We need to go back to that trajectory because the 3-year policy is not helping students to learn adequately to pass in their exams. Now, I beg you in the name of God to tell the NDC and NPP panelists on the show to spare us the agony of their partisan. Abna he says, good morning, Abna. Which the CDD one, will come to that when we discuss the CDD issue. Abna, the year which, no, there's a repeat. Abna, I think as a country we copy things blindly and wrong. Never be the same till you want to do things that America is doing. For instance, no caning in our schools. And this is the effect of it. This is Ilyasu and Wa. Good morning, Abna. Education. We have to start tackling it from the basic education level. Most of our teachers need more in-service training. The earlier we start, Sapon in Konongo. Good morning, Abna. Our educational system focuses much on examination than inculcating other disciplines in the children. And this is Kofi Wayo, is a teacher. Sule in Offenso says, please, Mr. Dongo, we have a vocational school in Offenso, Amwewi, and we are seeing nothing being done by the government as again. Good morning, Abna. NDC does not understand the meaning of quality education. They preach quality education when coming into office. 4 years down the line, this is the result we are getting. We need a change in government. This one saying, Abna, what's the importance of statistics and data? Please tell your panelists that it is used for planning, so they should stop making it look as though it's not important. This is Aram Adenta news site. And last one here, coming from Mensa Thompson in Kumasi, says, Abna, good morning, and permit me to say that our education system has been over-politicized. Not just that, our curricula lack interest. There's nothing system, and our basic education lacks direction. As a country, we need a national policy on education, progressive development plan that is immune to petty political cacophony. For now, the whole system needs overhauling. Doc. back to the issue about the pass mark being dropped and all of that, but touching on the last texter's comments, our system needs overhauling. Is that the way to go?
Well, I think, first of all, with regards to the pass mark, I wouldn't want to get into because it has a lot of political ramification in the sense that our and the basic level is organized by an external body, which is WAEC. And WAEC comprises a number of countries within the West African sub-region. So it's not one body or institution that has the authority to determine how grades are given or stuff like that. But that said, you see, Abna, let's face it, we don't have a perfect educational system in this country. And I can say for a fact that as at the time that Penny Jantua was in school, he was complaining that the educational system was not the best.
Were you?
No.
Well, I can tell you for a fact. No, let me talk.
Okay, please let him land. Yes. That was supposed to be a rhetorical question.
No, it's a rhetorical question. But let me say why I say no. Because in those days, the tutors would make sure that you learned, and they would give you the curricula as to what they feel you would be able to, how you pass your exams. They put the pressure on you to study, to learn.
Doc, please.
I said, if you came up and your grades were grade 3, you'll be just one in a few who, most of people will get grade 1, grade 2. If you get a grade 3, it is just embarrassing.
Very well. So am I only saying, so back then there were lots of classes, no failures?
Can I finish?
Very well. Please carry on, yes.
I made reference to Penny Jantua because historically, if you take our educational system after Nkrumah's educational policy of 1951 up to this time, there has always been a shortfall. Indeed, there were times that you taught at the primary school or even at the JHS level with something called Standard 7. You understand? Not too long ago, even just for first time, I mean, for you to teach at the basic level, you needed set A. Today, the minimum requirement is diploma. You understand what I'm saying? The minimum requirement to teach at the basic level is diploma. The point that I'm trying to make here is this, Abna. Look, as a country, I speak on this issue because I have some kind of background. I hold a PhD in curriculum and instruction, and I've had the opportunity of studying curriculum of different countries. I can say for a fact that our educational system, in terms of policy, in terms of curriculum, is not bad. It's not.
It's not good either.
No, let me finish. It's not bad. I'm saying the policy, the document, the guiding principle of our educational system, right from kindergarten up to the university level, is one of the best. But it's not the best. Why? Because of practice. Implementation, practice. Yes. The policy is good. It's fantastic. It's
operationalizing
you
it is an issue.
can compare it to any, but it's not the best.
It's like the laws we have in this country.
I made reference to my background. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the law.
So you see,
the point is that the practice, we have challenges. And I think there are so many factors. I would have wished that, look, every year when we have exam, we should have a post-mortem document of how the students fared, what were the factors that went to it, and what are the measures that have been put in place to address it in future.
Are you saying that is not done?
I don't know.
Mr. Gentleman.
No, the chief examiner, okay, or the chief examiner's report or whatever it is. But you see, one fundamental problem that we have in this country is teacher absenteeism. And I can tell you some of the factors that contribute to it. If you want to do a serious study of teacher-student contact hours in most deprived areas, take Adongo's constituency. I can tell you that about 20 to 30% of the teachers who are in active service are in school. They are doing distance education. They are doing sandwich. Indeed, do you know when they go for distance education? Distance education normally go for classes on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you're going for classes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, what it means is that the Friday, half of it, you are not in active work because you have to leave. And Monday, if you happen not to have a center in your locality, it means you have to travel. Do you know what it means? What it means is that during the weekend that you're supposed to use to do your lesson notes, research,
it's lost.
It's lost. So I think, look, it's good we give these students the opportunity to be educated, but I think we have to look at it in a way that it does not affect what? The student. We have something called sandwich. Sandwich normally runs from June to August. June to August, check the basic education calendar. They are in active school. They are in school. And the teacher is out every year. You understand? So I think, look, education is the foundation of every successful society. But we can only be successful if we are serious about it. And I'm not saying as a country we are not serious about it. We are, but I think, yes, buildings are good, IT centers are good, but there are some petty things that if you are not careful,
it's a combination of factors we need to look at.
You miss it.
Because you're talking about the absenteeism, which would, I mean, one way of dealing with that is clearly having supervisors going around and all of that. But you see, but this problem has been there for the longest time.
I can tell you for a fact that I know supervisors who connive.
So who supervises the supervisor then?
Who themselves are absentee supervisors.
Yes.
You know? The question I ask is that we have come back to this issue time and time.
Like many other issues.
Why are we doing it so? Why are we doing so? Now let me ask.
We need to be wrapping up so we move on to the next episode.
Let me ask the two as the media will call it, main political parties. When the MPP was in power, what was the rate? Was it above 30%? Was it above 30%? NDC,
I thought we had moved beyond that.
NDC have come into power. They are saying that 30% is good. Have they achieved anything for us? Absolutely nothing.
We are not saying it's
because if it so happened that the MPP, when they were in power, they had reached a level of 50%, NDC came and they brought it down to 30%, they would have a voice to say something. But they haven't been able to achieve that.
Okay.